There's a moment buried deep inside Wicked, not in the melodies, not in the magic, but a moment so quiet most people miss it. A moment when Elphaba stands alone at the edge of the world she thought she belonged to, and realizes the truth. She can't win by being who she was. And what happens next should have broken her. Instead, it births her power. Because identity doesn't crack under pressure, it changes. And today you'll see the deeper pattern driving her shift inside, the same pattern billionaires use instinctively, and the same pattern shaping your potential right now. Because this isn't a story about Oz, it's a story about you and how your identity changes when you didn't know you were resisting. Wicked looks like a fairy tale. 2 women, 2 destinies, 2 colors of magic. But beneath the spectacle is an inner battle every ambitious person eventually faces. The duel between the diplomat and the disruptor, between charm and defiance, between winning the room and rewriting it. Glinda floats, Elphaba ascends. And when you look at these characters through how wealth really works, it becomes clear that wealth doesn't reward purity of identity, it rewards the person who can shapeshift. And today we will unravel the hidden patterns behind that shift, the ones moguls mastered long before money ever arrives. This is the Wealth Project, where we don't do celebrity gossip, we do celebrity success. If you want the breakdown on the psychology, mindset, and money moves behind the famous and successful so you can transform your own wealth, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe now before we go deeper. Because what comes next doesn't just explain the rich, it explains you. So let's start where the story seems safest, with Glinda. Glinda looks like the easy path. The crowd loves her, the lights adore her, the world bends around her sparkle. But what looks like glitter is actually strategy. The Glinda identity. Glinda enters every room with the precision of an algorithm. Her power isn't magic, it's how she shapes what people see and feel. She's the diplomat, the network empress, the soft power strategist who knows that whoever commands attention commands opportunity. Influence becomes currency. Charm becomes leverage. Relatability becomes a weapon disguised as warmth. Real-world Glindas build empires from familiarity. Kim Kardashian, who turned influence into a billion-dollar brand. Taylor Swift, who mastered connection and turned fan intimacy into a culture. Emma Chamberlain, Zendaya, these are the class of people who shape culture itself, who don't follow trends, they initiate them. This is the Glinda identity. It starts with visibility, which leads to affinity, which leads to access, which leads to power. But influence is a throne built on shifting sand. Because when your value is built on applause, one shift in public opinion can turn your palace into rubble. The Glinda trap. Here's the price of Glinda's game you don't see coming. When your empire relies on applause, your identity becomes a hostage. Glindas become dependent on likability. They start choosing peace over power, reputation over reality, validation over victory. They climb high, but only as long as the crowd keeps clapping. Ask Ellen DeGeneres. Ask any influencer who's watched a cancellation erase a decade of empire in a month. Ask any public figure who's one headline away from exile. Glinda's crown is spectacular, but fragile. And the wealthy know no one stays loved forever. This is where Elphaba storms in. Elphaba doesn't care about applause or optics or who approves. She only cares about power, the kind that doesn't evaporate when trends shift. The Elphaba identity. Her power is conviction, sharpened into competence. She sees what others deny. She builds what others fear. She's the founder archetyped, the one willing to be misunderstood today to be undeniable tomorrow. Real-world Elphabas are everywhere at the top. Elon Musk doesn't care if you like him. He cares if you respect what he's building. He's been called arrogant and reckless, but he's also the richest person on Earth. Rihanna didn't wait for the beauty industry to accept her. She created Fenty and forced them to catch up. Steve Jobs didn't ask permission to reinvent technology. He was fired from his own company, then came back and turned Apple into the most valuable brand in history. Mr. Beast, who reinvested every dollar, ignored every trend, and became a cultural superpower. Elphabas build things too undeniable to ignore. Their identity is forged inside friction, not applause. Their psychology is simple and powerful. It starts with conviction, which leads to skill, which leads to momentum that leads to becoming unstoppable. But even inevitability has a shadow, because the disruptor's greatest strength, independence, becomes poison in isolation. The Elphaba trap. Elphaba's power comes from independence, and when independence goes too far, it turns into being alone. When you believe you must do everything alone, brilliance becomes barricaded. Elphabas refuse help, distrust collaboration, mistake suffering alone to prove they're strong. Think about the founders who build incredible products but can't get anyone to buy them. Not because the product is bad, but because they never learned how to communicate or sell. Or the artist who creates masterpieces but die broke because they refuse to play the game. The Elphaba who never learns to lead and communicate will always be one breakdown away from quitting, because you can't build an empire alone. And I'll be honest, this hits me every time, because I personally face the same imbalance of choosing solitude and success. So here's the question: who wins? The diplomat or the disruptor? The woman who charms the room or the woman who defies gravity? The real battle. Neither wins, not in the long game, because the real battle isn't Elphaba versus Glinda, it's Glinda versus Glinda, Elphaba versus Elphaba, and you versus the identity you've been stuck in. Every successful person reaches a moment where the identity that got you to where you are stops working. The Glinda hits a ceiling because she's spent so much time managing perception that she forgot to build something real. She has influence but no leverage. The Elphaba hits a wall because she's so focused on the work that she forgot to build the relationships. She has the product but no way of getting her work out into the world. This is the defying gravity moment, the moment where you have to choose: do you stay in your comfort zone or do you integrate the opposite identity? If this part is hitting a nerve, good. It means you're standing at your own edge. Most people hear this moment and back away. They cling to the identity that built their present and lose the identity that could build their future. But you're still here. So if you want more of these turning points, the kind that crack open the part of you built for scale, subscribe now and drop a like before we go into the deeper layers. Because the next section doesn't just reveal wealth psychology, it rewrites the way you see yourself. The example masters. Look at the wealth titans. Beyoncé started as a pure Elphaba, raw talent and relentless output. But she didn't hit billionaire status until she mastered Glinda's game: the brand, the mystery, the narrative control. Musk, he's an Elphaba with a Glinda media engine, memes, podcasts, cult followings. Zendaya, a Glinda who learned Elphaba discipline, turning charm into global leverage. Wealth isn't built from a single identity. It's built from a mix of identities working together, a fusion of contradictory strengths that make you impossible to replace. And most people never evolve because they never see their identity clearly in the first place. The identity audit. Now, look inward. If you're a Glinda, you are magnetic, tuned in. You move through rooms like water, spreading, connecting, harmonizing. But underneath the glow sits the fear of fading. Your power is visibility, but your weakness is dependence on it. The next evolution requires a villain arc, not cruelty, but courage. The courage to be disliked in service of something greater. If you're an Elphaba, you are a builder, a solver, a visionary who can see systems others overlook. but your strength has a shadow, solitude. You've built brilliance and buried it. Your next evolution requires expansion, not popularity, but getting your work out into the world. Glinda's rise by adding courage, Elphaba's rise by adding connection. The winners? The winners rise by becoming both. And truthfully, I never saw this pattern until I realized wealth is not money. Wealth is your identity changing as you change. Here's the reveal Wicked hides beneath the theatrics. Glinda and Elphaba don't destroy each other. They complete each other. And that's the transformation wealthy people make long before the world notices them. They stop asking, which identity am I, and start asking, how do I become both? The identity shift. At its core, Elphaba represents the architect identity, the person who builds from conviction, not approval. Her power comes from focusing on who she believes she is, and who she believes she is determines what she does, long before the world agrees with her. That's why she wins, not because she's fearless, but because she acts from an internal compass instead of public permission. Glinda embodies the influence identity, the ability to shape perception, guide emotion, and turn connection into momentum. Her strength is the way she reads people, that she understands how people think, move, and choose. And in a world built on attention, that skill is a financial superpower. The true mogul is the hybrid, the architect who can influence, the influencer who can build. This is not about personality. It is about shaping your identity on purpose, the deliberate evolution of the traits that produce power. And your next wealth jump depends on this. Stop clinging to the identity that built your present. It cannot build your future. Shift from, do they understand me, to, I'll build something undeniable. Or, I need them to like me, to, I can shape how they see me. When your courage meets your voice, when courage fuses with connection, when your identity becomes something you can shape, not something that traps you, you stop playing for applause, you start building a legacy. If this changed the way you see wealth, you're already stepping into the strategist identity, the identity that sees patterns others only feel. So tell me, are you Glinda, Elphaba, or are you becoming the hybrid? Your next wealth upgrade is one click away with the Wealth Project. Pick our latest insight or a curated favorite right here on your screen.